university, one of the best-known universities of Paris, 250 students. So it was very, very great success. So I won't go into more details because we have a certain amount of time only. But another thing I wanted to tell you about these beginnings in Paris and in time when George Harrison, well known to all of us, one of the Beatles, we through Shamsundar and Gurdas and Mukunda, we got in contact with George Harrison, and you must have all heard we did the Radha Krishna album in London at the Apple Studios, and it was so because it was of course George Harrison who did that record with us. We were for many months. We were first at the, how do you call it, top of the charts. We say top of the chart. That's a word, yeah. So we were first at the top of the charts, and it was such that when we were doing Harinam in the evenings, if we walked by a nightclub, they would tell us, "Come in, come in, come in," and we would be going and having a kirtan inside the nightclubs, you know. And if we walk by, you know, at that time there was a lot of stores selling records, you know. And if you walk by a store selling records with the door open, what do you hear? The Hare Krishna mantra and the Govindam prayers with Jamuna. It was such a wonderful time. So I'm telling you these stories because something very far happened, which was that because we were so well known through George Harrison and the Beatles, the Hare Krishna devotees were so well known that at that time there was a big festival in France in a city called Aix-en-Provence. And in that big festival in 1970, there was an ad for, you cannot see, but I'll tell you what's in it. There was an ad for the people who would be singing. So very well-known people at that time, I don't know if they're well-known here, Leonard Cohen, John Winter, the Flock. They are well-known in France at that time. Huh? And there was a whole list of all the different singers. And on the list there was, here, Radha Krishna Temple. So with all these people who came, you know, for this big festival to hear all these well-known singers of the time on this enormous stage. At one moment, it was all of us singing the songs from the record, the kirtans and the bhajan from the records, the Hare Krishna Temple. I wanted to tell you that story. And then what was funny also is that, you know, that was the hippie time, you know. So when there was this big festival, there was a lot of hippies walking around naked. And here we were on the stage chanting Hare Krishna, singing Hare Krishna and different bhajan. And then Shamsundar or Gurdas gave a lecture and I translated it in French. So that was a little story. Then, yeah. So now, how did I go from my services? So I told you one of my services was university preaching, translating, and it was also I did a lot of Gurukul in different cities. I was head of the different Gurukuls. I put together different Gurukuls in Belgium, in France, in America, in New York, in Philadelphia, in many different places. And I was also doing the public relations. And many years after, how did I get from being a preaching devotee engaged on all my services in the temple to become an animal rights leader? What happened is that through the mistake of a dentist, I got a damaged nerve, which is called the trigeminal nerve, because there is 3 nerves and 1 nerve, like that, trigeminal nerve, which is called the suicide disease, because the pain is so terrible. You are constantly under terrible pain from day and night. It's nonstop, never stops, because the nerve is completely inflamed because the membrane is destroyed. So I was constantly under painkillers to stop the pain. But being a preacher, I couldn't stand the idea. I always wanted to save the world. I met the devotees, I met Prabhupada, I was saving the world by preaching Krishna consciousness, and here I was stuck in my pain and not being able to do anything. It was just, I couldn't stand it. And what happened is that at that time I had left France, and I was in South Carolina, where I met my son, Katamrita, now named Namamrita. And what do I see? In a store, there was a paper asking for volunteers in an animal shelter. So I thought, wow, that's something I can do. Because when I'm crying and screaming of pain, I cannot do that in front of people, but the animals, they won't care, you know. If I'm taking care of them and suddenly I'm starting to scream and cry of pain. So I thought, that's a good thing. That's what I'm going to do. And that's how I got involved in animal rights. That was my first beginning. And then I had this experience of what Prabhupada told us. He had told us one day, whatever you have learned in Krishna consciousness, it will always be useful to you, whatever you do later. And I discovered that, yes, it did work. Because when I was the animal rights leader in different aspects, I always had very, very great success. And I knew that the reason I had this success, because I had all this experience, all these years and years and years of experience of serving in Krishna consciousness, working with devotees, because devotees, they are all volunteers. We are not calling each other volunteers, but we are volunteers. Whatever we are doing as service, we're not doing it for money. So we are volunteers. So when I was working with the animal rights people, they were also volunteers. They were not helping the animals for money, you know, they were volunteers. So I had such habit and experience in dealing with volunteers, people who work not for money, but just for doing something good for the world, that experience really, really, really helped me. And one of the first thing I did was, I would never thought I would have done something like that. I was the manager of an Animal House thrift store in South Carolina, a big place that people were giving all kind of things to sell, and we were selling it, and the money was going to the animals. But I mean, I had never done that in my life, and here I am in charge of this big store with only volunteers. And the reason also I did that is that whenever I had the crisis, the volunteers were taking care of the place. I would go in the back and cry and scream until the pain went away. I took the painkiller and then came back. So it was possible to do this kind of work also, even though I had this disease. So an example of how whatever you learn in Krishna consciousness is always useful, whatever we do. So I was 14 years leader of animal rights groups. Then I stopped because I was too old. So first it was my first years of activism were with PETA. You all know PETA, I guess, in South Carolina. Then it was with the Palmetto Animal League. Then it was in Savannah, Georgia, where I created the vegan group. And after that, okay, now I'm going to not tell you immediately stories, some hard stories. You know, when you do animal rights defense, you are sometimes in very crazy situation, especially the way we did it in France. But what were the areas that we worked on in animal rights? Because it's not just against meat eating, there's many things. So most of it, yeah, it's against meat eating, it's against factory farms, it's to try to convince people. So first is meat eating, then it is against animal experimentation. We do a lot of things against that because it's very terrible what's happening to the animals. Then there is against bullfighting, something you don't have here in America, but we have it in Europe. Then it was the animals in circuses. We worked a lot against that also. Hunting, that you have also here. Against the wearing of fur and leather. And trying to defend the ocean animals, the whales, the dolphins, and for protecting the environment. So these were all the different area of our militantism, our activism. So when you do animal rights activism, you have 3 goals. You have to work on 3 different things at the same time. So one is that you want to convince individuals, little by little, one person by one person, little by little, you convince 1, 2, 3, 4, and little by little, you have more people who stop hurting animals in their daily life through eating or whatever other action. So that's the first thing. Second is convincing it's called companies. Because, we have to convince stores not to sell fur anymore. We have to convince the circuses to stop using animals. So we have to convince the companies. That's the second goal. And the third goal is to change the laws in politics. That's the highest goal, and that's the hardest one. But that's a goal. We want to change laws, because even if we convince people one by one, it will not make as much difference as if we finally change laws. So these are the 3 goals we have. And there is 3 ways to do it. I call it the soft way, the hard way, and the harder way. So I worked on these 3 ways of doing it. So the soft way is that we have information tables, and we show people how to be vegetarian, how to be vegan, how to eat healthy food. That's not bad for the environment, that's good for the health. That's a soft way. How to be non-violent. So that's the easiest. And for that, we have something that you have it here also, I think. We have the Veggie Pride Day. Do you have that here? Have you heard, some of you, of that? It's once a year. We have the Veggie Pride Day, which is we do an immense demonstration. We used to do it in Paris and in Toulouse, where we are with signs too, don't eat meat, don't hurt animals. It's very, very efficient. We used to be 500 to 1,000 people doing this Veggie Pride Day. I think it exists in America also. Then the other one is Vegan Day. Vegan Day is the day when we are going to invite all different associations of animal rights and all different of vegetarian restaurants, vegan restaurants, stores that sell vegan food. And we have plenty of tables where in a big place where people can come and hear us explain it, see our books, see all our paraphernalia, and talk with us. So I think you should have that in America also, Vegan Day. Maybe not here, but it certainly exists here too. So that's a soft way. Another soft way is trying the companies and the farms. It's not to convince them not to eat meat, but at least convince them to hurt the animals less in their breeding and raising of animals. It's a way to do it. Like, for example, we obtain in France that there will be more and more for the people who are eating eggs. It will be more and more coming from hens that were freely walking around and not in their tiny cages all their life, So that's another way, a soft way to do it, which is also working. We obtained some result with that. Then there's the hard way. Now, the hard way is that when you do the soft way, the tabling, you just give different kinds of food for people to taste, vegetarian food, vegan food, and you explain them how you have papers that explain where you're going to find your iron, where you're going to find your protein, where you're going to find how to be a healthy vegetarian or vegan. That's the soft way. But the harder way, which was my way, I did the harder and the hard and the harder. So the hard way is that you're going to show them what's going on, you know. So the way to show them is that I had an enormous wall of pictures, photos, big photos, showing what was going on in the training of animals for circuses, where I would show what was going on in the slaughterhouses, what was going on in the factory farms, you know, what was going on in the bullfight, you know, everything was, did the experimentation, everything was shown, they could not avoid. And I could see a lot of people, when they were walking in front of us, you know what they would do? You know, they look, and then they see what it is, and they turn their eyes. They don't want to see. They want to keep on doing this thing, so they don't want to see, and they walk by. But a lot of people, they stop. And the other thing, which is very useful that I did, and that's thanks to Peter, I learned how to do it here in America, in South Carolina with Peter, it is to do, we call them happening. Do you say happening in English? Yeah, happening, a kind of, you make a little show with costumes. And so I used to do that always. For each subject matter, I would have a kind of staging a little show with costumes, so that it one flash mob, you say that also? That's a word you say? Yeah, because you see, we have something in France that you don't have here in America, but we have lots of places where there's all kind of stores, but the cars cannot go. So it's only people who walk, you know. So when people walk like this, it's easy to attract you have to attract their attention, you know, because of course they want to be looking at the stores and what they're going to buy in the stores. So you have to do something that's going to attract their eyes, you know, take them away from the stores and get them to see what you are doing. So that's why I had all these photos, all these signs. The activists would be holding big signs, costumes. Like, for example, I would have someone would be disguised as the costume of a cow or a pig or a hen, you know. So one of them is holding a sign. He has a costume, like, for example, of a pig. He's holding a sign that's showing the cruelty of the animal breeding in the factory farm, you know, so they see. And next to him is a person who is going to distribute the leaflets, you know. So this is very, it works very good because it really attracts the eyes of the people, and they look at what you're doing, and then they can be convinced. And the way it worked, the reason also I could see it worked is that I was doing the tabling like that for about 4 hours. In 4 hours, I had petitions to be signed. You know, in 4 hours, I had each time. I had 300 to 600 petitions signed. That means that you had 600 people who came to your table, talked with you, looked at your leaflets, brochures, books, look at the picture, and even go all the way to sign. So that means that if 600 people have done that, you have at least 1,000 people who pass by and look at what you are doing. So you can see that you have, you know, got the attention of a lot of different people. So this is a very good system. It was very successful. But for you, it's more difficult here because you have the cars, and you already have cars everywhere. You don't have, like we have the facilities of people just walking, you know, and so it's more difficult to do here. So oh yeah, another thing we were doing also is you certainly have something like that here too, is pet sales fair. Once a year in all the big cities in France, you have a big fair where they are selling cats and dogs and birds and, you know, all kind of common animals. So we would always do a demonstration in front of these fairs. And it worked really good because one day one of them, the director of the fair, he came very angry at me and he said, "By your fault, we lost hundreds of sales. So, right, we are very happy. He was furious, but I was very happy, which means that it worked. We tried to convince them to take them in shelters instead, in sanctuaries instead of buying them. So yeah, that was the one I forgot to tell you. And okay, harder. So harder, I will tell you some stories little after I'm finished explaining our system. Harder is when you do demonstration against bullfighting, we go inside the bullfight arena. I did that 4 times. I tell you after. So this is one. The other one is that with your signs, instead of just staying in the street, you go inside the meat restaurants, So we walk all without a big sign showing the horrors of animal breeding and animal factory farms. And we walk through McDonald's, especially. We walk through the restaurants with our signs, and we stay there until they throw us out, of course. But that's pretty nice way to do it, and it works. So that's the harder kind. And another one is okay, that's not only a harder one, but illegal. One of my activist friends, he was going inside the slaughterhouses. He was putting cameras, and the camera was registering everything that was making videos of everything that was happening in the slaughterhouse. Then he would go back and get the camera back, and then we would see exactly what they were doing. So we did that for the slaughterhouses, and we did that for the factory farms. And one of my job was not putting the video, the camera, but was with him. We would sit down, and for hours we would be looking at these videos of the slaughterhouses in order to take just some of the parts of the video. We could not give hours and hours, and give it then to the newspapers, to the television, to, in different ways to get the people to know about these things. So that's one of the harder way we did also. Okay, now I'm going to tell you about the successes and then about the methods and the stories. So successes, because very often people, they come and they think that, well, in 6 months, we're going to change the world. No, it takes years and years and years and years, but we do get results. So I'm giving you some of the results. For example, in France, we got vegetarian meals in schools. Before we started this activism, because I was one of the first ones in France to start animal rights activism. So when we started, there was nothing. And after a few years, it took a few years, but after a few years, we got that all the schools, primary school, high schools, they all have vegetarian or vegan meals. So some of them, they have it once a week for everybody. And some of them, they have it once a week for everybody, but every day there is a vegetarian or vegan option, But this didn't come like that. It took years of activism, but we got it, and all over France. So that's very, very wonderful. And now I can see that my little granddaughters, they have vegetarian meals in their school. So it works. Another one is, we obtained that also in France, the banning of wild animals in circuses. Finished. It's forbidden now in France. Because most people don't know that, they think that it's nothing. But through PETA and other organizations, we saw, I was crying when I was looking at them. We saw what they are doing to train these elephants and lions and tigers. It's horrible the way they do it, One day, in fact, what we did is that we were explaining to people No. There was we took a video of that. It was a circus trainer who was explaining how well the training of wild animals, but it's so in the love between the trainer and the animal. It's all in this complicity there is between the animal and the trainer. And while he was talking, we had behind him the videos of how they train these lions and tigers and elephants, and we showed the truth, and so it worked because now it's forbidden, at least in France, but it's forbidden to have wild animal circuses. And by the way, one of the circuses I was fighting against here in America, it's called Ringling Bros, and in South Carolina and in Georgia and Savannah especially, I did a lot of demonstration against these circuses, this circus particularly. And some years ago, I heard Ringling Bros stopped using animals in his circus. So it works. So I invite you, if any of you want to be doing animal rights activism, do it, and it will work, and you will obtain successes. And that's the only way it will happen. Like, for example, the city where I was working in France, especially, was called Montpellier. It's called Montpellier. When we started the activism in France, there was only about 2% of the population that was vegetarian. Vegan didn't exist, but vegetarian. After, excuse me. After these years of activism, we went from 2% of the population to 5%. So it's not enormous, but still, it's more than the double, so it works. That's another way it shows that we get success. Another one was, we managed to have finally the closing of the dolphin shows. You have that here also, SeaWorld or something like that you have, So we have one called Marineland in France, and it closed. We won once again. No more whales and the orcas and the dolphins stuck in a little swimming pool for all their life. So it worked. Another one was, you have heard of foie gras. It's the same word in English. You use the French word. So it's horrible. The way they got these ducks to have this enormous foie. How do you say foie in English? Liver. Yeah, this enormous liver, which is what they call the foie gras. It's absolutely horrible. And now in France, foie gras is completely forbidden in any official dinner. You see? So it worked. We got the results. Then we also got, I don't know if it worked here in America, but in France and I think in Europe, it's forbidden now to do testing on animals for cosmetics. So not for the rest, unfortunately, but at least for cosmetics. It's already something that we want through this activism. Another thing that we stopped was bear shows, dancing bears. I don't know if you heard about that. So there was a show going on in France, and I fought against that. Every week I was there. And finally, they stopped. So this was also a success. And as far as bullfighting, we didn't stop yet the bullfighting. Bullfighting came in France. There was no bullfighting in France. And the way it came is that the Napoleon III married a Spanish princess, and the Spanish princess, she brought bullfighting into France. Before that, it didn't exist in France. So for the bullfighting, we didn't get to stop it, but we got to have shorter seasons and less seasons of bullfighting. It's already a little better, but it's not finished yet. Something which is very, very good is that we obtained in the city of Montpellier, in the city hall, you know, this big building, which is the city hall, there is, just like there is a declaration for human rights, there is a declaration for animal rights. And in the city hall of Montpellier, there is, and it was an official ceremony, there is a big, 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 big sign, which is the publication of the animal rights, just like there is human rights, is the there is human rights, it's animal rights. So this is pretty far out, you know, that this is happening. And the other thing, you don't have that here also in America, or maybe we have an animal political party. In order, of course, we know they're never going to become president of France, you know, but it's a way to get to change laws, and it's really, really well working, you know. So this is very good also. Another very good success. Oh, I'm coughing now. Another success was that yeah, it's a researcher of the CNRS, which is the National Center of Scientific Research. So he's a researcher. This is very, very important thing in France. He interviewed me to have a video that is put all over his CNRS, his research center, which he called the Vegan Manifesto. This Vegan Manifesto, it's me explaining what was all the animal rights work that was done in the city of Montpellier. So that's pretty far out also, you know, that we got that result. So now, with the method I first told you of how we did the tabling and the shows and the staging and all this, but also our demonstration, sometimes we could have a lot of people. Like, for example, when we did bullfighting demonstrations, we did one in Paris where we had 5,000 activists. So that's pretty good, you know, to have 5,000 activists. And we had another one in the city where there's a lot also of bullfighting going on. And same thing, it's called Alès. There's a big arena. And same thing, we had 5,000 activists that came all over France to demonstrate against bullfighting. So this is one of our successful methods. Then, another thing very, very important is that whenever you do these things, it's very important to get radio, television, newspaper articles. And this worked very good. Most of the time, when I organized things, I had a newspaper article, and very often also radio and television, you know, so this is very good. And the biggest we had, so I will tell you in detail the story after, is that I had organized with my group one thing against bullfighting, and then my animal rights friend of another group, he had organized another one in the city next to it, and they were at 2 days difference. And we got 50 articles in the newspapers, on the television, and on the radio. So that's pretty good. So of course it was pretty heavy that I tell you the story this time. One of them was the city of Nîmes, which is one of the biggest Roman arena. And I organized the demonstration in front of the arena, but during a bullfight, not, you know, any time of the week, no, during a bullfight. So there was 50 of us, the activists, and of course with costumes. You know, the costume was that I had the activists were all in black, lying down on the ground with fake horns on a white sheet full of false blood. You know, that was the staging that I did. And during that, and then I had one of us was the costume as a torero, we say torero, bullfighter, you know. So that was very, very visible. So of course the journalists, they like that because they have something to show. But because it was during the bullfight, there was 50 of us, and in front of us to protect us, there was 50 policemen. And 50 people came out of the bullfighting arena. During the bullfight, they stopped looking at the bullfight to come and beat us up. But because there was these 50 policemen in front of us, they could not beat us up. And we went on and on and on and on. And afterward, the chief policeman, he tells me, I think now maybe you should stop your demonstration because it's really hard to stop them from beating you up. And that was one thing that was very, very good with at least with my work, is that I had a lot. Oh yeah, that's one thing I didn't tell you of the methods, is that along with getting newspapers, article, and television and radio as much as possible, we have a lot of contacts with reporters, but we have also a lot of contact with police, and when we are the leaders, and we have a lot of contact with the city mayor. Yeah. So I had always lots of contact with the police. And one of them was what was he called? He was I've written the name because I have a hard time with the way to translate that in French. The regional intelligence officer. I think that's the proper way to translate regional intelligence officer. And what was very wonderful is that he was very friendly. We had a very, very friendly relationship together. And so whatever was going on, he was always helping me. And what we found out, in fact, is that the policemen, they were with us, even though they had to stop us from going into the arenas or doing this or that. In fact, they were with us. And so they were always, making arrangements so we could do what we were not allowed to do. And I remember one day, it was in front of the Béziers bullfighting arena, and I had organized that, and there was lots of people. But he had received orders from the mayor of the city that he was to take us far away from the arena, because in fact, what we do is that we do as much noise as we can when we're in front of the arena to disturb the bullfight, because the people in the arena, they hear it, and the bullfighters, they hear it, and it's very disturbing to them. So we have to do the maximum of noise with whistle and with megaphone and any kind of thing. And but to do that, you have to be close to the arena. If you are too far away from the arena, they don't hear as much. So that I remember that time with the policeman, he had received the order to put us far away from the arena, 500 meters from the entrance of the arena, the bullfight arena. And I told him, you push us, but very slowly, very slowly, so that we can keep on making as much noise as possible. And he was pushing me, all the others were behind me, very, very, very slowly, so that we could do our demonstration as long as possible with making as much noise as possible. And instead of putting us 500 meters away, he put us only 200 meters away. So you see, the policemen, they were so much helping us often that they were often even ready to disobey the mayor of the city in order to help the activists. And there was one in particular, whatever I was doing, he was always helping me. I tell you a funny story. Yeah?
We're reaching time.
Yeah. Oh, no. And I didn't tell you the best stories. So I have to tell you at least this one, which is the best one, which is when we entered the arena of bullfighting arena. So we were 95 activists who went into the arena. And there was 30 on the bleachers, and there was 65 that were inside the arena. So when you go inside the arena, you have to jump from the bleachers 2 meters to jump down to the bottom of the arena. So that's already something to do. And so it's 65 of us, and then what we do is that we have chains, and we chain each other so that they cannot push us away, because it's very easy to push away one person, but it's much more difficult to push away 65 people when they are chained together. And so that's why we do this system of chaining each other. And it really worked because they had such a hard time to throw us out. But what was terrible is that they are very, very bad, this bullfighting, both the people who do the bullfight and the people who attend the bullfight, because they were beating us so bad. They were kicking in the face with their feet, with their fist. It was really, really bad. I went 4 times inside the arenas, and many of our activists, they were taken to the hospital. Even one of them, he was taken in the hospital with a helicopter. He had to be taken so quickly to the hospital that the car was not enough, the ambulance was not enough. It had to go to be with a helicopter. So yeah, you have to be pretty courageous to do this kind of activism, but at the same time, it works. So we were ready to do anything to help the animals. I was in the bleachers with the big signs, and they were trying to make us fall down the stairs, and the stairs were cement stairs. If you fell down from in the stairs, you could really hurt yourself. And they were pushing us and pushing us to fall down. So we were holding at each other so that we would not fall. So there is a lot for, if anybody wants to hear more, I have a lot of very, very, very far out stories like that about what we are able to do to help the animals and how we do get success. Okay, so I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Jyotirmayi.
Yeah.
Okay. Typically, we have questions and answers now. Okay, you're very eager, so you can get one in. We are a little behind. Well, I was gonna say that you'll be here for Prasadam afterwards.
Well, depends if